Hello and welcome. We're about to get into a massive topic for your GCSE Citizenship exam, democracy at work in the UK. We're going to look at everything from how we vote to how laws actually get made, and we'll try to figure out who really holds the power and what it all means for you. Ready? Let's do this. So, let's kick off with the million-dollar question. Who's actually in charge? Is it the Prime Minister? The King? Or maybe it's us, the people who vote. The truth is, it's a lot more complicated than you might think, but stick with me, and by the end of this, you'll have it all figured out. So, here's our plan. First, we'll look at the democracy blueprint, the basic rules of the game. Then, we'll see how it all works in the real world with democracy in action. After that, we'll get to the important part, your power, your voice. And we'll finish up with a super handy exam cheat sheet to lock it all in.
Okay, let's jump right into part one, the democracy blueprint. Honestly, if you can get your head around these key ideas, everything else about UK politics will just click into place. Think of it as the instruction manual for the whole system.
First things first, how we vote. In UK general elections, we use a system called first past the post. It's pretty straightforward. In your local area, it's a winner-takes-all race. Whoever gets the most votes wins the seat in Parliament. Simple. But the alternative, proportional representation, tries to do something different. It aims to make a party's share of seats match its share of the total votes across the country. And that's the big debate, really, the simplicity of first past the post versus the fairness of proportional representation, which tries to make sure every vote counts. Now, here's something really unique about the UK. Most countries have a single formal rulebook, like the American Constitution. We don't. Our Constitution is uncodified. It's more like a giant puzzle, pieced together from hundreds of years of laws, traditions, and major court cases. This makes it super flexible, but some people say it also makes it a bit vague and tricky to pin down. And these are the key players in that system. Now, this is pure AO1 knowledge for your exam, so you'll want to remember these. You've got the monarch, who's the head of state. You have the government, led by the prime minister. Then there's Parliament, who make the laws, and the courts, who enforce them. You've also got the police and the civil service, who do the day-to-day work. And of course, there's us, the citizens. Okay, let's zoom in a bit on Parliament. It might look like just a load of people shouting, but everyone has a very specific job to do. You've got the Prime Minister, of course, running the show. The Speaker acts like a referee, keeping debates in order. The opposition's job is to challenge everything the government does. You have whips, who are basically the party's team managers, making sure their MPs vote the right way. And then there are the backbenchers, the MPs who aren't in government but are there to represent their local areas. There are even cool ceremonial roles, like Black Rod. So how does a simple idea actually become a law of the land? Well, it goes on quite a journey. It starts life as a bill. Then it gets debated, pulled apart line by line in committees, changed, and eventually voted on. If it manages to pass through both the House of Commons and the House of Lords, it gets the final stamp of approval from the monarch. That's royal assent. And, ta-da, it's officially a law. So we've got the theory. Now for part two, democracy in action. Let's see how all those rules and roles actually work in the real world, from picking a government to deciding how to spend billions of pounds. Picture it. The election's over. The results are in. This is the first thing that happens. The monarch formally invites the leader of the party with the most seats to become prime minister. But what if nobody gets a clear win? This is called a hung parliament, and it's when things get really interesting. The parties then have to negotiate and maybe even team up to form a coalition government. And that takes us right back to our voting system. This chart really shows you why first past the post causes so much debate. I mean, look at this. Party A got 40% of the vote, not even half, but they walk away with 55% of the seats, giving them a majority to do whatever they want. Meanwhile, Party C got a pretty decent 20% of votes, but that only translated into a tiny 10% of the seats. So it's not just about numbers, it's a huge question about whether this system is truly fair. Now, it's really important to know that not every decision in the UK is made in London. We have something called devolution. The easiest way to think about it is that the main UK Parliament has handed over or devolved certain powers to national governments in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, so they can make their own decisions on some key issues. And we're not talking about small things either. Look at the kind of powers that are devolved. Things like health and education. This means the Scottish Parliament can run its schools and hospitals differently from how they're run in Wales or England. It's all about letting policies be designed to fit the specific needs of each nation. Of course, running a country costs an absolute fortune. And the person in charge of the nation's wallet is the Chancellor of the Exchequer. They set the budget. That money comes from us, through direct taxes like income tax, and indirect taxes like the VAT you pay on stuff you buy. And this is where the biggest political arguments always happen. How much should we tax people, and what are our priorities for spending all that money? Okay, so we've looked at the system. Now for part 3, your power, your voice. Let's make this personal. Why does any of this stuff matter? Not just for your exam, but for you as a citizen living in the UK. For your exam, this is all about Assessment Objective 3, AO3, and it's so important. It's not enough to just know facts. AO3 is about being able to use those facts to build an argument. It means looking at different sides of a story, weighing up the evidence, and making your own reasoned judgment, and then explaining why you think that. So let's try it out. Here's a classic exam-style debate. To get top marks here, you can't just say yes or no. A great AO3 answer would explore both sides. You'd argue, well, on one hand, it is undemocratic because nobody votes for its members. But then you'd also say, on the other hand, it's full of experts who can really improve our laws. Showing you can see both sides before making your final call is the key. And all of this links to AO2, applying your knowledge to the real world. You see, democracy isn't a spectator sport. Once you understand how the system works, you have the tools to get involved. And that can be anything from voting once you're 18 to joining a campaign group, signing a petition, or just volunteering in your local area. These are all real ways to make your voice heard. All right, we have covered so much ground. So for our final section, let's do a super fast recap. This is your exam cheat sheet, the absolute essentials that you need to have locked in your brain. Ready? Let's go. The UK is a representative democracy. We use the first-past-the-post voting system. Our constitution is uncodified, meaning it's not all in one document. Parliament has 2 houses, the Commons and the Lords. A bill needs to get through both of them and get royal assent to become law. Key powers are devolved to Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. And finally, the Chancellor is in charge of all the taxes and spending. Got it?
And I'll leave you with one final thought to chew on. We know the UK's rulebook is a jumble of traditions and laws, but if you were given a blank sheet of paper and you could write the very first, #1 rule for how the country should be run, what would you write? Thanks for joining me for this explainer.